you drew. My niece has decided to visit. She wanted me to see her artwork. Okay, you wrote your name. Oh, is this a bumblebee? Okay. Hey, welcome back. It is time to chat about what I read for the month of February. And I feel like every time I come on here, I am always saying like, oh my gosh, it's a new month. Now, I feel like time is speeding up. I felt this way for the past like 5 years. I don't know what it is. I don't have proof, but I know I'm not crazy. It just seemed like time is something's going on. It also could be because I only upload videos like every 2 weeks or so. And so, and when I come back, it's like, oh my gosh, where did the time go? I ain't crazy though. Anyway, let me know down below in the comments if you think time is speeding up too, because I can't be the only one. My February reading was very romancy, lovey-dovey, lovey-angsty, heavy, and that is in part because I reread a bunch of my favorite romances and erotica for my Valentine's Day video. If you haven't checked that out, definitely do. I had been wanting to do like a themed video for a while, and I picked Valentine's Day. So yeah, definitely check that video out if you haven't already. In my last video, I was reading The Dead Cat Tales, and it is an adult fantasy that I originally mistook to be a YA. It is definitely not that because of the violence. And also, I looked at the character on the front and I'm like, oh my gosh, she looks so young. And also, if you like speculative fiction, there's some elements of that as well in the plot. So the novel follows Even. She's a woman who has been reanimated, aka she is now undead. And she has joined a guild of other undead individuals and has become an assassin. Each of the members in this guild are really unique, with mostly unknown pasts and questionable motivations for becoming an assassin, but most of all, they're deadly, okay? And the assassins and their guild master follow a matron. This matron is their sponsor. This matron is called, among other titles that she has, she's called the Matron of Assassins. In this book, the matrons and patrons are like God-like beings, divine-like beings that you would find in Roman or Greek mythology. Each of them can choose to sponsor a group or a set of people or organizations. And so the matron sponsors this guild where they unalive people, and she accepts those unalived individuals as offerings. I know, Mo, what are you reading? I know that's what you're asking yourself, but it was a really good book, okay? And I'm gonna tell you why. So the matron has a set of parameters or vows that the members have to follow. The contract must be just. Only the contracted can be unalived. And once a job is accepted, it has to be carried out, or the contractor puts their own life at risk. These last two, they weren't vows in and of themselves, but they might fall under one of the 3 is that no contract can be taken out on a child, and no woman while she's pregnant can have a contract taken out on her. Um, but everyone else is fair game, and that is where even our main character runs into a dilemma. She accepts a contract where the target is the justifying for the target is kind of blurred, right? And it's someone that she knows from her past, and a part of the process of becoming undead is that they lose their memory. She should not remember who this person is. I enjoyed this book to the point that I wish there was a sequel. I feel like there's so much more that could be explored about Even's past and some of the history of some of her fellow assassins. Despite Even being an assassin and doing some very, questionable things, morally black things, I liked her as a character. She had this kind of sarcastic vibe about her, down to earth. She's into crafting, which I thought was really cool. Like, oh, this is what you do on your day off? You do crafts and stuff? Who would have thought? The author crafted a really descriptive and different environment for his characters to operate in. And the fight scenes were really well described as well. Overall, I enjoyed the book, gave it a 4 stars, and I felt like the story only took place in 48 hours, and I felt like he did a really good job in giving a full plot and things being really well fleshed out for the timeline only taking place in 48 hours. All right, so this next read I loved so much, okay? Each turn of the page, each start of the chapter, I was like, keep up the momentum. Please don't drop the vibes, the feels, just don't. And it was Between Friends and Lovers by Shirlene Obi. I definitely might be saying her last name wrong. Please forgive me. But yeah, Between Friends and Lovers. There was so much I loved about this book. Okay. And let me start with the main character, Dr. Jojo, or Josephine Boateng. Dr. Jojo is a licensed medical doctor and a social media influencer with a niche on providing digestible medical advice and tips, including sex health and self-care education for the masses on Instagram. Of course, being on social media doesn't show every facet of someone's life. And in Dr. Jojo's case, on camera, she's able to answer so many questions about, other people's problems and gives really solid and sound information. Though off camera, there's a lot of questions that she has been avoiding answering for herself. Specifically, questions like, am I truly fulfilled by what I'm doing, or am I just good at it? Do I want to stay in medicine long term, or am I more passionate about the education side of things? Am I growing, or am I just maintaining an image? Am I avoiding intimacy or being vulnerable? Am I taking care of myself the way I tell others to do? Again, a lot about Dr. Josephine resonated with me. And a lot of those questions she asked herself as well, if I'm just keeping it a buck with y'all. But there comes a moment in the story that forces her to confront these questions And that arrives when she attends her best friend's birthday party. Her best friend that she has secretly loved for many years. He defends her childhood bully and seemingly rejects her after she confesses her feelings for him. Now, a big disclaimer, y'all. Okay. When I originally read this synopsis, and even when I read it like the second time, okay, I thought that these three were going to be in a poly type relationship. That is not the case. The same night of her best friend's party, after she has been rejected, it seems, she meets Malcolm. Malcolm is a rising author striving to chase his dreams of becoming successful. Speaking of Malcolm, if I do another fictional I'm in love with this character video, Malcolm is definitely going to make the list. He is such an awesome, like, if he was a real person, he would be such a great person to have as a friend and, person to depend on, all of the things. He's really cool. I felt the author really took her time in letting Josephine and Malcolm get to know each other. They didn't immediately do the horizontal tango. Okay. Even though the kindling for it was there throughout the story, they each had some things they needed to work through individually and together. I was recently watching a video by the book Leo, and she was talking about some things that are missing in romances and some patterns in romances that needed to be addressed or needed to be switched up. And one of the patterns she noted was the portrayal in a lot of the romances that are published now. So now it seems like one of the partners has to be dominant, usually the male, and one of them has to be submissive. And I can tell you that reading between friends and lovers was refreshing because I got to see a couple where they started off on equal footing, and a lot of the conflicts that took place between them is because of things that they were struggling with and how it affected the other partner. Again, I could go on and on about this book and how there were tears shed. It touched on communication and establishing boundaries, showing up for people in the way they need, and the emotional depth of relationships in this time where social media exists and how it affects how we perceive others. But overall, it was sweet with some heat and beautifully written. Oh, you drew. My niece has decided to visit. She wanted me to see her artwork. Okay, you wrote your name. Oh, is this a bumblebee? Okay, y'all see the bumblebee? You see the bumblebee? Oh my gosh! Somebody gave you an A+. Yeah. All right. Okay.
I gave myself an A+.
You gave yourself an A+. Okay, I got you. And there's a door and a ladybug. Okay.
I'm taking on the bed.
Huh?
I'm taking the bed.
Okay, well, you just gotta be quiet while I'm recording, okay?
And this is a beetle.
Oh, okay, a beetle. It's not a ladybug. Okay.
Because ladybug have circles.
Yeah, they got their spots. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, just be quiet. I'm almost done.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Um. So next up is Pride and Protest by Nikki Payne. Lisa Bennett is a passionate DJ who wants to stop a soulless property developer from gentrifying her neighborhood. Her protest against the company takes an unexpected turn when she clashes with Dorsey Fitzgerald. Dorsey is the acting CEO of the developing company, and when they initially meet, Lisa mistakes him as a waiter. Okay. From there, the two constantly butt heads. And of course, with this being a Pride and Prejudice retelling, there's plenty of underlying tension and chemistry. So here's what worked for me: the tension between Lisa and Dorsey. At the beginning, their interactions had a strong spark. I was excited to see how their dynamic would evolve. I liked, or I didn't like, but I appreciated how the book touched on um, social themes such as gentrification and having preconceived judgments about people, which added some depth to the story. And of course, I enjoyed that this was a retelling on Pride and Prejudice. Now, here's what didn't work for me: the hot and cold relationship between Lisa and Dorsey. Now, I understand, in an enemies to lovers dynamic, there is going to be that push, there's going to be that pull, right? But the back and forth between them sometimes felt inconsistent. Some of the reasons behind the push and pull didn't always seem timely or make sense. Secondly, what didn't work for me was Dorsey's name. Okay, it just didn't work. It wasn't attractive, appealing. It was too close to Darcy. It was too close to dorsal. It was just weird. Like, can you imagine being in an intimate moment and calling out the name Dorsey? Like, maybe somebody could make it work. But I just think she could have picked a different name for him. And lastly, what didn't work for me was Mrs. Bennett. This lady right here, she was extra, extra, extra annoying in this version. I get that the author was trying to reflect certain family dynamics and generational perspectives in a Black household, but Mrs. Bennett's comments, her mindset, her actions throughout this book were just straight up ignorant, okay, and really insensitive to me. I had higher hopes. It was a solid read. Definitely a lot of how things were developed were kind of like the movie that came out, in the early 2000s. This read definitely is not a favorite, so I'm giving it a 3 stars. Lastly, I read That Self-Same Metal by Brittany N. Williams. It is a historical fiction set in Shakespearean England following Joan Sands. Joan is a young craftswoman who maintains stage weapons at a theater company for the king's men. And she also has the ability to control metal, make metal, thanks to the Orisha Ogun. And beyond the theater, she gets entangled in some dangerous fae politics as tensions rise between humans and the fae. One of the things I really enjoyed about this was the mix of history and mythology. The story blends again Shakespearean England with West African lore, which I thought was really new, really different. The setting as well was well researched. Like you can definitely tell that Miss Brittany took her time in researching the time period, the different locations, the historical figures that she has present in the book as well. And I appreciated that at the back of the book, she included a she called it a note on history. So she talks about the time period, and she also gives a list of the different historical figures during that time period. And that was so helpful, okay? Because I don't know how many of y'all paid attention in composition class where they talk about all these figures, or world history class. I know it wasn't the most interesting time period for me to pay attention to. So it definitely helped to have that guide. Now, while I like the premise of the story, the pacing didn't always work for me. About 3/4 in, I felt like the story was kind of dragging with too many filler interactions and dialogue. There was a lot of plays. Like you got to see Joan in her day to day at the company and watching the other characters perform Macbeth and, the other stories, right? The romance in the book didn't work for me either. I felt like it wasn't sure if it wanted to be a YA or a new adult read. Joan's feelings for her love interest had a more mature, lusty tone to them, and there was also hints at being in a polyamorous relationship. And while I don't mind that element of a relationship, I think all of that, the lustiness and the poly type relationship, is more for an older audience. And I felt like there should have been some content warnings for this read. This book was described as swashbuckling, and I definitely think that was accurate. The fight scenes were dramatic, theatrical in a way that fit the theatrical setting. Will I read the sequel? Maybe. I'm curious to see how and where the story goes. I want to end this video with a quote that I liked. It's actually the dedication for Between Friends and Lovers. And it says, "For the strong girls, for the girls who seem to have it all together even when they're falling apart. For the Megan the Stallions of the world, who everyone knows how to consume, but no one knows how to protect. You deserve to be cherished too." It's Women History Month, and I thought it was a really fitting message to share. Now, I'm speaking to myself when I sit here and say this. Make sure to check in with you. Are you good? Do you need a break? Is there something in your life that isn't serving you that you need to cut out? A lot of the books I read last month touched on how demanding life can be for women physically, emotionally, socially. And we can't be strong for someone else or help continue to better the world and support the ones we love if we aren't taking care of ourselves first. So keep that in mind, okay? And again, I'm talking to myself when I say this too. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in for another video. I appreciate you. Until next time, be safe, be blessed, and remain unapologetically you.